No,
they're
just
long.
7.5.
7.5. They're long, and there's a lot of characters, so you have to start from day one.
You know,
you can't jump in late.
I watched 6 and 7 over before I started to watch 8 because it had been so long. I thought I wouldn't do it. It was worth it. It was worth it.
I saw a parody where they were like, I can't keep up with all these characters.
There's a lot.
And I figured it was one of those where there's too many. You don't know what the heck's going on.
A lot of moving parts.
Great. It's all good. I say if it keeps the, I can't say it really. You have to say thank God for entertainment and baseball, because it keeps them thinking about something else other than killing Jews. So they have to keep them occupied. Whatever's going to keep them busy, if they keep it.
Anybody watch the Rockets game last night?
Yes.
Pretty exciting, huh? I really thought they were going to lose it in the end.
Oh, I knew it was going to go to overtime.
Are we ready to start?
Yeah.
Okay.
What page are we on?
Out. That's the good one. Now we're going to start on page chapter 9. We're chapter 9, page 121. Chapter 9, Gates of Reincarnation, 121. Okay? You there? You there? You get in there. Okay?
It's funny how I put that there. You must have told us before.
Yes, I did, because this is a. Now he's going to go into an introduction, and I read this last night, and I'm like, whoa. Some of these, the network medias, they would have a great time if they were in the time of King David, as you're going to see, right? You thought news now was hot and heavy, right? Special introduction to the tower floating in the air. I remember seeing a lot of times I would go into these art places and I would see this unbelievable artwork where people would actually have a huge painting of a tower floating in the air. I thought it was a strange kind of weird thing, But actually there's a source from it, okay, as we're going to see, of a tower floating in the air. Is it literal, not literal, is always the first question you have to ask. Tower floating in the air. There you go, Shigalish.
The temple? The third temple?
No.
No, what are you talking about?
We're talking about, well, let's just read it. Do you have a text? Then you have to share.
I like listening.
Then good, you'll listen. Listen, okay? The Rav opens up chapter 9 with the following extraordinary statement, which will be explained here at length. Okay? Chapter 9 is one of the 400 questions that Doeg and Achitophel asked concerning the quote-unquote tower floating in the air. So who is Doeg and who is Achitophel? Okay? Doeg and Achitophel were the two basic, huge adversaries against King David. Okay? They held high positions in office, and they basically tried to take King David down. Okay? So basically everything is going to revolve around this. What do you call it?
That's funny.
Because I'm trying to put it into modern day terminology.
It was a Democrat.
Into no special counsel for an investigation. Okay? Special counsel for an investigation to take King David down. Okay? And they had reasons and arguments. Okay? But let's look at where this idea, the concept comes from. You're going to be experts in the tower floating in the air if you're ever at a party or anything like that in the future, and somebody mentions it. Yeah, we know all about the tower floating in the air, and you'll go ... Okay? The sources of this extraordinary image, the tower floating in the air, are in the Talmud and the Zohar. The Talmud in Chagiga 15b, right? In the Talmud, it says the number of questions asked by Doeg and Achitophel, they said there, it's 300. That's a lot still. Yeah. In the Talmud Sanhedrin 106, right, they two numbers they have, 300 and 400. They're both recorded, and the Zohar has 400. Okay, just That's what we're going to revolve around the 400 questions concerning the tower floating in the air. But let's just get a more.
Go through each one?
We're going to know.
Oh, good.
You cannot get to remember number 3. Okay, not for me. But you understand how if you can come up with 400 questions concerning something, that's a lot, right? You're going to see it's what I would call just simply as a razzle dazzle, right? Can you imagine how much time and the networks would have this guy to go over all 400, okay? Least, right? So the following is the text of the Talmud, Rav and Shmuel. Shmuel found Rav Yehuda leaning against a doorpost and weeping. And he said to him, "Keen scholar, why are you crying?" So he replied, Is it a small matter what is written concerning the rabbis? So he's going to quote a verse from Isaiah, and it talks about the rabbis. Basically, there's no really smart men anymore. And this was like, you're talking about 1,500 years ago. Because what does it say? Where is he who counted? Where is he who weighed? Where is he that counted the towers? So that's a verse in Isaiah. Okay? But basically it's referring to where are those rabbis who can do these incredible things with their minds and hearts. Where is he who counted? Refers to scholars who counted all the letters in the Torah. Which you have to think about that. What is that? What's the big deal about counting the letters in the Torah? Especially now you have computers, right? Where is he who weighed? Refers to those who weighed the laws of the Torah to determine which are heavy and which are light. In other words, some mitzvahs are heavy mitzvahs, some mitzvahs are light mitzvahs. Like Kibbud Avim is a heavy mitzvah, okay? Shluch HaKhan, sending the mother bird away, would be considered a light mitzvah, okay? Even though it's pretty heavy.
What was the heavy one you said? That you
Honoring your mother and father.
Thank you.
Heavy, hardest mitzvah, okay, to do, okay? So anyways, where is he that counted the towers? Alludes to those that taught 300 laws concerning a tower floating in the air. Let's get the exact, what's it talking about? Okay? The laws of spiritual purity and defilement are the most difficult. These are certain tractates in our oral law concerning, right, laws of purity. They're obscure and esoteric in all Jewish law. Everybody wants to avoid them. These certain books, parts of our oral law. Not avoid them, it's just, it's very hard to really fully grasp, okay? One of the main sections of this category of law is taught in the tractate called Mishnah Ohalot. Ohalot means tent. Mishnah means like oral law. Ohalot is an ohel. Ohels is basically like a building. Simply put, what is the law concerning a tent in terms of the law of defilement, ritual impurity? Let's just look at it in practical purposes. I'm a Cohen, right? I'm not allowed to walk into the same house as where there is a Jewish dead body in. Because the whole tent, the whole roof of the entire building, which contracts the tuma, the defilement of this one dead body.
Why are you not allowed to go to a cemetery?
Same
That's
reason.
not a tent.
If I can make sure I'm 6 feet within any grave, it's maybe doable.
Does it go up?
Maybe
It
doable.
goes up?
It's now they stop it because they put what's called a certain space between the actual dead body and the coffin. So therefore, the tumor, which usually does go straight up to heaven, gets blocked because there's an empty space. Okay. But in any case, so I'm not allowed to really be within 6 feet of a dead body. But if there is a hospital, Jewish hospital in Israel, it's not so simple that I could walk into it. Because if there is someone died in that hospital, the entire hospital is considered to be tuma, to have this defilement of a dead. And therefore, I cannot even walk in, even though he is like way down on the other wing, in the east wing, and I'm in the west wing. Okay, life-threatening situations we're not talking about. Talking about me just simply walking in. So now in Israel, there are signs that they put out, especially I know Shari Chesed is really good at that. They put a sign out, warning to the Cohen, that the Cohen should not enter until they remove the body, and then they take the sign away. Other hospitals don't give a poo-poo, and they don't care.
Supposing
Okay?
you're in there and there's nobody dead and somebody dies while you're in there.
So then if there's a rabbi around who's smart and sees me and knows I'm a Cohen, goes,
Out.
doors that way.
Okay.
Okay? And that's happened to me too.
Really?
Door. And I got the signal, and you got to go straight out. You can't stop for coffee, stop and chat. You go right out the door. Okay? No stop and chat.
If it's an immediate family member,
Of course.
you could.
One of the 7 relatives, close relatives, you're allowed to go to their funeral and for sure be around their bed if they are passing away. Okay, that's mother, father, son, daughter, sister, brother. Okay?
Those are your.
And wife.
Well, those are the 7.
Those are the.
Of course, immediate relatives is a completely different law. I'm talking about it in general. I'm glad you're asking.
Is the bathroom considered tumah also in the hospital?
Yeah, the whole roof. If the whole roof makes a tent over the whole glockenspiel, that's right. If you have to go, You got it, buddy. Hope for this.
And even if they have a very close, let's say your brother's daughter passes, God forbid, you can't go to her funeral?
Brother's daughter.
Your
niece.
niece.
What we do is you make sure you keep a distance in the funeral procession, but as soon as they go into the cemetery, you cannot go in. No, only the close 7.
Really?
Yes,
Okay.
I know it's like
It's
what a
tough.
shanda. It's disgusting. You're probably thinking, right? I can't believe it, but
I think it's sad.
well, listen. We participate in other ways, and the thing is, there's really serious about why the Cohen doesn't go into graveyards.
Okay.
You have to go in and take that up. I can give you we're diverting, but it would take me another. You want to hear why?
I do. I don't know.
Then
Anymore.
shame on you.
I-
Okay. It's okay. I'll tell you why. So the reason why, simply, is Kohanim have to maintain their level of tamimut. Tamimut, tam, which means wholeness, completion. Okay? Because these are your connections. The Kohanim, the priests, are the connection, right? They serve in the temple, and they help a person they help you to be a vehicle to connect to God, right? In the temple time, they would do the sacrifices, and then, and then they had, and they were the doctors. They were the doctors, okay? So the idea here is the Kohanim have to keep their level of wholeness and tamimut. And in order to do that, you have to always have joy. If they go into a cemetery, hang around the dead too much, what's going to happen?
Not much joy.
Not much joy. It's the opposite. See, if you take the word mate, mem tough, and you switch those letters, you have tough mem, tam. Okay, tam means whole. Kohanim must keep their state at as high as possible in order to still maintain themselves to be a vessel or a vehicle, right, for connection. Okay, so in other words, really, they have to keep as far away from depression or sad things as possible. So in other words, to go there, this is just according to the Shemi Shmuel, the Sugacheva Rebbe, okay? Because, as we know, we talked about this before, Adam in the Garden of Eden, they were whole, they were tam, right? They were tam, they were whole. They weren't complicated, like sometimes we get. Let me finish this thought, otherwise I'm going to forget, okay? So they were whole. What happened was, here comes the serpent, and the serpent says, all the trees you can eat. You can't eat that tree. The reason why you can't eat from that tree is because you're missing out. You're not whole. If you eat that tree, then you will be a complete, right? So in other words, he fed them an idea of you're not complete. You're not whole. Okay? Once they bought that belief, we're still, and ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the word tam, which they were, whole, switched and became mate, dead. Okay? They bought into the idea of lack and limitation, which we are still eating to this day, those ideas of lack and limitation, because when you're connected with God, tamim tieh im Hashem Elokecha, when whole you will be when you're with God. When you're with God, you're whole. You're whole. There's nothing lacking. God will not withhold anything from you. Okay? The problem is we don't believe it. We can't accept it. So because we're caught up in the tree of knowledge of good and evil type thinking. Okay? There's 2 types of thinking. Okay? So anyways, that's why they can't get associated with the dead. Okay? Because of that whole, it's going to take them down, and therefore they won't be able to serve properly.
Yeah, if a group of Kohanim are walking along a road and there's a dead body there, and there's nobody else around.
Okay, Meis Mitzvah, you're right. You're getting into
Not a
intricacies
dead
of that.
body.
The Kohen Gadol, the high priest on Yom Kippur, he's on his way to the temple to go serve. He hits a dead body that needs to be buried. He does it. That's different. We're talking about in general. Just the general rules, okay? Not relatives, not Meis Mitzvah, not on any of these special things, okay? How do we get involved in that? Okay.
Okay.
Let's go. That's Mishnah Ola. So we ask questions.
Just a general announcement. I got an email from Virtual Law. They're going to do a drill today on security.
At what time?
I don't know. So it's
Everything is going to
around-
be what it's going to be.
I'm just letting you know if you hear like alarms and stuff like that. Or
So we have to also probably leave.
It's
probably.
Could come with security.
I would finish
They're going to
the-
come here and hopefully
I
they'll
would
guide
finish
us.
the lesson and then leave.
Okay, fine. Sounds like that's the plan. Harvey says finish the lesson even if it's early and then go. All right, let's go. Mishnah Ohalot. Sorry, so let's go. Back here in the text on page 121. Okay? One of the main intricacies of this Mishnah Ohalot, which is the oral law concerning tense and tuma and contracting tuma, and, a lot of intricacies. Very, very, very detailed, and it's something that we have a very, very hard time with because we're not in tune with it. Okay? Subtle energies and subtle laws. Right? And it is one of the most difficult and one of the most obscure texts that we have in our oral law. Indeed, in these days, centuries after the destruction of the temple, nearly all of these laws are no longer practiced, and the scholars who are proficient in them are really few. And there's a great story here by Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, who one day had to, on Yom Kippur, I'll just tell you the abridged version of this great story. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter was a leader of the generation. It was that time there was a plague going around in Lithuania, and he decreed everybody has to eat on Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year, we are eating. What? The entire community must eat. As a matter of fact, he made Kiddush on Yom Kippur. Okay? Because you have to make Kiddush. It's a holy day. Because why? This plague, if it was going to take down the strength of the people, certain people would become so weak, they would be susceptible to the plague. So as a pikuach nefesh, a matter of life, saving life, everybody eats on Yom Kippur. Now, some rabbis are going, whoa, buddy boy. You're moving a little faster. He says, okay, come, I want you to come and you will address your questions and I'll answer your questions. Had a certain meeting of all the head rabbis. Fluke came from all over. And then what did he do? Here he goes. He's going to address the community, right? And he's going to talk about why he thinks that we should be eating on Yom Kippur. But instead he doesn't. He goes into a completely different dissertation on the most obscure part of the entire Talmud. And he goes into a huge rendition and he mamish razzle-dazzles, okay? And boom, boom, boom. And he's like, everybody blown away. Everybody's blown away. And then he just closes the book and he leaves. And basically what he did was he says, you guys don't know squat. Don't mess. Okay, this is what we're doing, and that's it. I know way more than you, so let's just leave it at that. Okay? And they're just like, huh? Okay.
They never got an explanation.
They don't need one after that. He blew them away with a Mishnah from this tractate that nobody had a little bit of a little shmek tabak on. Okay, the Mishnah of Oalo, let's just get into the practical. The Mishnah, top of page 122. The Mishnah of Oalo, chapter 4, teaches about a tower floating in the air. It refers to a tower, a small portable closet resting on thin legs. Okay, so now to help Harvey out, right? So we have actually something that it's not literal, a tower floating in the air.
Right.
Just a closet in the open space that has very, very thin legs. So it can appear as if it is a tower floating in the air. Okay? Standing outside under the roof of the sky, as opposed to a tower located within another building, like a closet. Nevertheless, according to Rashi, the leading commentator of the Talmud and Bible, and based on his supreme authority, the tower standing in the air is none other than our tower floating in the air that we're going to deal with next time. In other words, we're going to give you a few examples of what this tower floating in the air is. Just bear with us. This is the question concerning the tower floating in the air. When does its contents remain undefiled in opposition to the environment surrounding it? In other words, if it contains something defiled, under what circumstances does it defile the surrounding environment? In other words, if there's a dead rodent well, it's not dead rodent, let's get something higher, like a dead body in this closet that's in the air. Tower floating in the air, dead body. Right? And you go by it. I go by it. Right? And I'm within 6 feet of it. Do I get defiled? It's in a box. Right? But I hit it, and I was within 6 feet radius. Do I get hit with the defilement of this dead body?
I say yes.
Okay? Okay. Some of these are the questions concerning the Mishnah here in Ohalot. Right? Or let's say there's something inside the box, piece of food, and something defiled goes just outside the box. Does that piece of thing that defiled it move in the box? You get it? There's a lot of little details. In brief, those that taught 300 laws concerning a tower floating in the air refers to those that were proficient in a very difficult section of Jewish law. It is a section that was also obscure and esoteric even in the days of the Talmud, even in the days of King David. These scholars were few and great, and Rabbi Yehuda was crying over their disappearance because we didn't have anybody who could razzle-dazzle with the tower floating in the air. Okay? Rav Ami said 300 questions were asked by Doeg and Achitophel concerning a tower floating in the air. We're going to get to that. In Talmud Sanhedrin, this teaching is also stated in the name of Rav Ami, but the number of questions recorded there is 400. These questions were asked by Doeg and Achitophel, who have in common, in addition to their keen intellects, implacable enmity to King David. King David's two adversaries, Doeg and Achitophel. The prototype, who King David is the prototype of Mashiach. They were not motivated by the pursuit of truth. Rather, they desired to confound and obscure, to disclose esoteric secrets for selfish and impure reasons, and especially to use their erudition as a weapon against David, the Messiah King. Asking these 400 questions on the 300 laws concerning a tower floating in the air, they are, so to speak, the devil quoting scriptures. Did you ever hear about the devil quoting scriptures?
No.
Oh, he's great at it. Okay? Right? There's great stories about that, right? They know it all. The king of the demons, his name is Ashmedai. During the day, he goes and every day he goes up to heaven and he studies in the heavenly study hall, right? And once a day he comes to this mountain to drink water from his special well, right? And one time King Solomon, he had to capture this king of the demons. Long passage in Gemara and Gittin, in the Talmud and Gittin, and how he captured this demon. What he did was he had to break into his well and he put wine in the well instead of water. He replaced it for wine. And here comes King Ashmedai, king of the demons, moves this rock, and he finds wine inside his well, and immediately starts going, wine is for the fool, wine's for the idiot. And he quotes all these scriptures, all these verses, one after the other. Meanwhile, he drank it and fell asleep. So, but he knew it all, right? Chapter and verse, okay? So here, these two become actually the devil quoting scriptures because they knew stuff. We call it actually the demon scholar. Okay? Who is the demon scholar? There is such a concept. Okay? Scholar, razzle dazzle, looks from, beard, pious even, right? And he knows it all, and he portrays himself as a tzaddik, and then he talks to you a little bit, and he tells you to do things.
Then you find out.
Yes, I met him. Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Well, halavah, you find out. A lot of times it's not so. These guys are very good at hiding themselves. But if you can check his feet, you'll see that if you see his feet, then you'll know. He has to have chicken feet. Chicken feet. Demons have chicken feet.
Ooh, I
Okay?
didn't know that.
Yes.
There's
Like if
trick
you see a
there.
guy and you suspect that he's a demon scholar, he's got a strimal kapata, and he's telling you, you say, can you take off your shoes and socks for me? I don't think that's going to work.
That's what they say.
His students around him will definitely beat you up, drag you outside, okay? Anyways, let's not go there, okay? Rav Ami said 400 questions were asked by Doeg and Achitophel concerning a tower floating in the air, and none of them were answered. In other words, here they go on CNN, MSNBC, going through 400 reasons why David should not be king, right? Each one, and of course, nobody could stand up and refute them. They were so good. Their arguments, they slammed down anybody in a debate, okay? Until King Solomon, Baruch Hashem. But King Solomon came later, okay? Meanwhile, the questions were like floating in the air because you don't have an answer for them. 400! You think a dozen? Give me 2 dozen and I get an extra one free, but come on. Okay? Rabbi said, is it such a great thing to ask questions? In the years of Rabbi Yehuda, they only studied the laws of damages. Rashi explains there that God wants the service of the heart, avodah shebalev, rachmana liba boy, we say in Aramaic, and not impure erudition. Rabbah's statement is intended to disparage the greatness of men like Doeg and Achitophel who use their sharp minds in such a negative way to ask 400 confounding questions. In contrast, in the generation of Rav Yehuda, the esoteric laws of spiritual defilement were not even studied. but only the straightforward practical laws of damages. Okay, and here we go. Page 123. Furthermore, in the Mishnah of an Ohalot that begins with the tower that is standing in the air, the main theme is the rule that Tuma, spiritual defilement, goes out, but it doesn't go in. Is that like Roach Motel? No, that's the opposite. Right?
They go in and
They
out.
check out. Okay. Thus, if there is something defiled out inside the tower, then its influence will go out under certain circumstances to defile objects in the environment around the tower. However, if the tuma is outside, it will not enter into the tower to defile objects that are within it. Doeg and Achitophel wanted to prove otherwise, and in the same way to claim that something entered into the Gilgul of King David or his antecedents that made him ineligible for kingship. Okay? In other words, everything that Doeg and Achitophel did, okay, we're going to explain who they were soon, moved to disprove the show that King David, his soul comes from a not clean place. He comes from the dark side of the force. Right? And they have proofs for it. Proofs, ironclad proofs. Okay? It was far from outlandish to suppose that there was really something seriously wrong in the line of King David. Okay? In other words, it wasn't such a crazy idea. You understand? There's a stacked. The files are stacked against King David. Okay? Look what it says here. Come and see who his antecedents were. Am I saying that right?
Mm-hmm.
From the side of his ancestress, Ruth, the Moabite woman. Ruth was a Moabite. There's an explicit verse which says Moabites don't come in the congregation of Israel. No converts from Moab. Period. And here's Ruth coming in. How can this possibly be? It was an argument that Boaz said it's only the men, not the women. Yeah, Boaz, that's because you got to marry her. Okay? Right? Okay? Right? So let's talk about Ruth, right? And you got a whole chart there, and you got all these guys talking, right, going on like this, right? There was an incestuous... There's more. There was an incestuous relationship between Lot and his daughters. Where did Moab come from? Lot being with his daughters, right? Which is just about the Lot being with his daughters. Lot.
Moab, where the word comes from.
Right, from my father, right? So that's what it. So here, Moab came from this like unbelievable Lot with his daughters, an incestuous relationship that can't be kosher. That can't be kosher. As well as the law that prohibits Moabites from converting into the congregation of Israel. Who says? Who says? They're supposed to. There's an explicit verse, explicitly. It's against the Constitution. Okay. His father's line was also full of problems. Who was it? There was Er and Onan, right? Who were the sons of Yehuda. And then Yehuda with Tamar. Okay? Yehuda had an affair down there. Right?
It's a one-time experience.
One time he had to get his lawyers to go ahead and go down there and settle the case, right? That was about what, that was a sheep. But he couldn't find her to give her the sheep, right? It was just a sheep, Afterwards came the story of Elimelech and Naomi and their two sons, Machlon and Kilion. Here's Elimelech and Naomi. They were rich landlords. Time of famine, they split because they didn't want to spend their money. Went over to the land of Moab. And who did those kids, the kids Machlon and Kilion, married Moabite women? Okay? What is going on here, man? And the strange levirate marriage of Boaz and Ruth. Okay?
What a strange.
These difficulties, by the way, are some of the subject matter dealt with by the Saba in Zohar Mishpatim. That's a passage in the Zohar, which I'm going to bring in books after I dig them out of the closet too. Some people want copies. Which is the section that will be briefly introduced in this section under the title The Saba Enters into the Place of the 400 Questions, which we'll get to hopefully soon. Moreover, Mystery and doubt, listen to this, mystery and doubt surrounded the birth of David himself. His father Yishai had separated from his wife after the birth of their 7th son. Okay? And yet, all of a sudden, she's pregnant. I know I separated from her after kid number 7. Right? How did she come to be pregnant once again? And according to her, impregnated by her husband, who didn't remember a thing.
Well, that's not uncommon.
Alcohol.
I don't think he was drunk.
Too much alcohol.
I was like, I looked back at this and I was looking like going, what happened? He didn't remember a thing, and everybody goes, right? But I'm telling you, you imagine this guy, he told his sons, this kid is definitely not from us. It's not for me.
We just had this.
That is a mumser boy. He's a mumser.
How I got there.
So he told all the other sons, all the brothers, this kid is not from our line. So you imagine how they treated this kid.
Not well.
You imagine how this kid is raised. Okay? Pardon? David is number 8. But don't forget, the Yishai had another wife. Okay? But just from this, okay? Because, anyways, it's weird to me why he doesn't remember a thing, which is kind of like, almost like, was he possessed by some other force? That he did it, and obviously this force took over even his mind, that he had no clue. It's very strange to me. The first time I ever saw it was here. I have to do some little research on that. What happened? In any case, you imagine Doeg and Achitophel. What really happened here? Breaking news. Okay? So, finally, the incident of David and Bathsheba. David and Bathsheba belongs in this category as well, because look, you see, he's a puzzle, meaning he's disqualified. His soul comes from the dark side, and he actually expressed a dark act right now. So it's part of him. Of course he's like that. Look at him. He's a Shagets, and he comes from a Shagets place. Shagets. Do I have to translate Shagets? You got it. Low life. He's not fitting to rule, right? He comes from the back trailers of who knows who slept with who back there in the trailer park. We don't know where he came from. How can this be? He assumes the highest position in the kingdom. Comes from the backs of trailers. Who knows who? Mary Ann with Buddy Sue and Billy Bob.
The test determined you're not the father.
Right?
No DNA.
No, that's the other one.
Since it also served as a prominent argument for those who wanted to derail the Davidic dynasty, okay? He behaves like he behaves like trailer trash because he is trailer trash. Okay?
That's the man at the double wide.
See, you understand? This is going big. This is breaking. You understand? This is years of all that media just got so much fodder here to play with. Okay? In addition, there's another interpretation of the tower floating in the air. That it refers to we'll call it the organ, the male organ, okay, to keep the language as clean as possible. We'll call it Brit Milah, circumcision, okay? In this case, actually, right, so it's, you ever wonder, I'm sorry to break this news to you, but if you ever go to, like, the mosques and, mosques, and
We try not to do that.
Every single one of their things is either a phallic symbol or
phallic symbol.
right. In this case, the questions of Doeg, it's just always tower. They're into like big time
Straight up and
towers,
down.
straight up, right? Or they have these domes, which is like the women's,
Yeah, right.
In this case, the questions of Doeg and Achitophel refer to the complicated and questionable sexual history of the Davidic line as outlined here. The purpose of their questions, accordingly, is the same as what have been explained. According to Doeg and Achitophel, something entered into the Gilgul, the reincarnation, the soul line of King David or his antecedents, that made him ineligible for kingship. Okay, here we go. Who is Doeg and Achitophel? Okay, who gives them the right? Who gives them? Who are there's a bunch of Doeg, in addition to being the head of the Sanhedrin, head of the Supreme Court. He's not some guy Shmek Tabak off the street with some little claim. Coming, okay? This guy is like head of the Supreme Court. This is big. This is big, okay? He also commanded the special police of King Shaul. By the way, he has no portion in the world to come.
Yes,
Okay?
Yeah, that's what
There are four regular people. There's four regular people who have no portion in the world to come. Doeg and Achitophel are one of those. In other words, it's like Gehenna forever. There's 4 exceptions to the rule. Usually Gehenna is a 12-month sentence. These guys, it's...
forever.
Well, it could be like, hopefully, in the end of days, something will come out of it. So far, though, that's where they remain.
Maybe Pelosi and Schumer will be
I was not. I was trying to keep every single thing parv here. Okay, let's not get okay, because we don't know. We really don't. We want to keep things kosher. Okay, in that capacity. Okay. So here is Doeg, head of the Sanhedrin and head of the special police. This is like real Bolshevik stuff, okay? Special police, he's got dogs, right? He's got attack dogs, all right? Like Animal Farm. If you know, the story of Animal Farm was a great metaphor about what happened in communist Russia, right? The pigs own the dogs. They train the dogs. The dogs were the secret police. They need something to take care of. We need it taken care of, okay? They killed everybody, every single Cohen in the city of Nov because of Doeg. 90 priests' families were wiped out because of Doeg. Okay?
Nice guys.
In that capacity, you read through Tanakh. It's the murderous cutthroat. When you get through all the listing of the names, and you get through what the heck? Okay? In the capacity, he pursued King David relentlessly. In that capacity, he pursued David relentlessly. And all the advisors of King Saul, of all the advisors, he was the most insistent that David had to be eliminated. Can you imagine this? Here's King Saul's court. King David is not the king yet. He was secretly anointed, right? But still, here's Doeg and says, this guy must be removed. And he's like the head of the Sanhedrin, and he's totally in King Saul's ears all the time.
So that tells you he's full of it.
Well,
on one side, he's talking all this smack. You're not this, you're not that. You shouldn't be here. But then he's obviously perceiving him as a threat, as something legitimate.
He's a total threat.
Because if he was really a phony,
you're right. If he's spending so much energy, it must be it's real.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is this the time where the Hakadols were impure when they went into Yom Kippur? They had to be tied a rope around them?
That was the second temple. This is even before the first temple. Way before.
So they're still pure. They're not like corrupt.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're pure. Okay. Okay. When David appeared out of obscurity to kill Goliath, King Saul began to inquire after his identity and the lineage of his family. First, King David was a no one. Okay, he was secretly anointed, but King Saul did not know that. Okay, no one knew that. It was a secret in the closet anointing. Okay. Because King Saul did not kill all of the Amalekites. And Shmuel, the prophet Shmuel said, because you didn't do this, you blew it, you're going to lose the kingship. But he didn't say, okay, we're going to...
He didn't say it was...
Every king has their time, and one king has to finish his time before the new king. But he was commanded to go and anoint David. But so David was still playing flute, watching sheep, right? And being the weirdo boy with his little harp out there by the river, right?
Krishna moment.
Right? And
sitting around.
Yeah, meanwhile, but then all of a sudden, he wants to bring some food to his brothers who were in the army, right? The real brothers, right? And, and he hears that there's this bully, Goliath, calling to all the men early in the morning, come out and fight me, bring your biggest challenger, right? Because instead of, armies coming together, and will end up with a lot of dead. So you have their champion versus this champion, and then you can solve the problem that way. Meanwhile, nobody was going out. There was no champions. And the King Saul can't, because it would be beneath his dignity to be the king to go out. So they couldn't find a champion. So King Saul says, whoever goes out will marry, I'll give him my daughter, my oldest to marry. Okay, my oldest daughter to marry. What a deal. So King David, of course, volunteers to go out, right? He doesn't have any armor. He has diddly squat. He has a little slingshot. Well, first they put the armor. He says, okay, well, let's put some armor. He said, listen, so he kills me. Well, he killed a shepherd boy. Big deal. But if I win, how much more so is that going to make an impression, right? Even a shepherd's boy can make mincemeat out of you, right? for sure are warriors, right? If our shepherd boys can take you out, right? So he puts the armor on, but the armor is like King Saul's armor. The guy's like 9 feet tall, okay? Right? And so he puts the armor on, but a weird thing happens. Anybody who gets anointed, this is like a weird phenomenon. I know you're going to think it's hocus pocus, but he grew into the armor. King David all of a sudden, like X-Men or something, grew into the armor, okay? And here's King Saul going, what the... Okay, so all of a sudden, King David sees that he grew into the armor, and he quickly rips the armor off and going, maybe I'll just do without. And instantly then knew there's something with this guy. Nobody grows into the armor unless you've been anointed. But yes, nothing was stated openly. So here he is looking into who is this guy. Doeg answered, before you inquire about the lineage of his family, inquire whether they are even allowed to be members of the congregation. I don't think he's Jewish. He's not even Jewish. Not members of the congregation. Sorry, he's a mamzer. Most likely, I think it proves he's a mamzer b'vadaut, which means for sure mamzer. Since one of the matriarchs of the family is Ruth, the Moabite woman, according to Doeg, the Edomite, her ancestors are not even allowed to be part of the Jewish people. In this way, he wanted to banish David from any position of leadership, despite the fact that permission for a Moabite woman to enter the congregation had already been decided by several courts before his time. My ruling is different, Doeg said. No Moabites in. Therefore, he's a puzzle. He's a disqualified. Achitophel was the wisest of all the counselors in the generation of King David. Had Absalom, King David's son, followed the advice of Achitophel when he rebelled against his father, then David's cause would have been lost and the king would have been killed. But of course, he didn't follow Achitophel's advice. Okay? Indeed, it may be that the entire rebellion was the design of Achitophel, of Avshalom, and Avshalom was just a helpless dupe against a force like that. In other words, really, it was the advisor who had got Avshalom to rebel, do this, do this, do this. Of course, he didn't totally listen to Achitophel's advice, okay? Many divisions of soldiers fighting against Avshalom did not threaten David as much as Achitophel joining the ranks of the rebellion. For this reason, David prayed special prayers, and he sent special secret agents to infiltrate the ranks of Avshalom's counselors for the special purpose of frustrating the advice of Achitophel. In other words, he sent spies. Okay? Espionage. It is not insignificant that King David is the prototype of Mashiach, and these two, Doeg and Achitophel, with their great minds and keen perceptions, were the most implacable and most dangerous of his enemies. Typical of secret agents working behind the lines, with these questions they wanted to confound and confuse, hoping in that way to cast doubts upon the legitimacy of the Davidic dynasty. Furthermore, they wanted to uncover a secret weakness in the root of King David's soul, a defilement or impurity in his Gilgal, or in the Gilgalim of his antecedents. In this way, they hoped to gain the power to stop the messianic redemption, God forbid. In other words, they had a bigger goal in mind, have to stop the redemption of the world. We have to stop the Mashiach from coming. So therefore, in a certain sense, they became agents of the dark side completely, the Satan, and therefore used their razzle-dazzle and their high positions of power to go ahead and do every single thing they can to stop King David. Okay? It is a floating, how good are we in time? We're good? Okay. It is floating in the air and has nothing to rest upon. There is another possible interpretation to the 400 questions of Doeg and Achitophel on the tower floating in the air. The Mishnah in Nedarim 10a makes the following statement. The annulment of vows are floating in the air, and they do not have anything to anchor upon. You know what vows, right? We're told not to take vows these days, because if you make a vow, right, and you break it, then a person's over a negative commandment. So that's why we always say without vow. Well, anytime, even if I say I'll meet you at the Starbucks, I go without vow, which in Hebrew it means it's bli neder. Or we say with the help of God, because it could be that God ain't going to help me, so therefore I didn't make a vow to meet you at the Starbucks. Okay, so we're very careful with our words. Okay. However, if a person does make a vow, he can go to a court, a Jewish court, and they can annul his vow. Okay? However, the body of law concerning the authority of the court to annul vows does not have any scriptural source to rest upon. Go figure. In other words, to annul a vow, the fact that rabbis can annul a vow, if a person makes one, there's no place in any of verses in the Torah that a chacham, a wise man, or a court can annul a vow. Okay?
It has to be 10 men too?
No, could be 3 or could be 1. If one is a mumcha, one is a real big expert in vows, he can do it, and otherwise you can get 3 to do it. Okay? So here the weird thing is about this whole rule that a chacham, a wise man, or a beis din or court can annul a vow. Where does that come from? Where's the source in the Torah? There is no source. That's the bizarre thing. That's why it's considered to be a tower floating in the air. The laws of Nadarim, of vows, are like a tower floating in the air because they could be annulled from where? There's no basis in the verse for it. Okay? The decision to allow a Moabite woman to convert and enter the congregation may be comparable. The scriptural source for this ruling is questionable. It was established on the authority of oral law. Boaz came and said, no, we have it handed down that a woman can come in, a Moabite woman can come in, but a Moabite man cannot. But the only thing the verse says was, no Moabites. That's what the verse says. And there's no place in the Torah, in the actual verse says, but the woman can. Okay? There's no place. The courts of Boaz and Samuel the prophet ruled accordingly, and it was finally established once again by the Sanhedrin in the time of King David. Doeg and Achitophel asked 400 questions in the attempt to nullify this ruling, although their logic was impeccable and could not be disproved until the time of Solomon. King David's son, the courts consistently ruled against them because there was a tradition that took precedence over their logic. That too is called a tower floating in the air. So we have a few ideas of what the tower floating is in the air is so far. Okay, one is we have the actual box, right? Has very spindly legs. That's one. Okay, and the other one is, of course, we have the idea here of vows. Is a tower floating in the air because the ruling to knock it down has no basis, has no actual verse. And then, of course, the rule of the Moabite woman. If the Moabite woman is allowed to come in the congregation, is also considered to be a tower floating in the air. Okay? Here we go. The Saba enters into the place of 400 questions. Okay? Now, there's a whole long passage, the huge, thick. My father-in-law did a translation and commentary, it's this thick, on the passage of the Zohar that deals with reincarnated souls. Okay? And it has a nickname to it, this passage called the Saba. The Saba literally means grandfather, right? Actually, my father-in-law called it the old man in the sea, right? Because he talks about being in an ocean a lot of times, because of the ocean of the Talmud, so oceans of debate, so waves of debate. In any case, that's why it's called the Saba, okay? This huge passage in the Zohar. As mentioned previously, the number of difficulties and questions raised by Doeg and Achitophel according to the Zohar is not 300 but 400. The Holy Zohar also says that King David's son, King Solomon, the wisest of all men, answered all of them. Thank God. Furthermore, the Zohar, the Saba of Mishpatim, also asks and answers some of them, or at least one of them. In the middle of this section, it is stated explicitly that the Saba has entered into the place of the 400 questions, and some of the text that records it here will follow here, okay? However, we have to give you something that I didn't give you before, which is quite interesting, okay? And this really gets into some serious Twilight Zone stuff. We're doing fine. However, we're on the top of page 125. Before we can translate and explain the explicit text, we must first recall something that was learned previously. I didn't do this before, but we're going to do it right now. This is a phenomenon called the spirit that was left within the woman. Okay? As a result of the first intimate relationship with her husband. In other words, anytime a man really is with a woman, he leaves an element of spirit of his soul within that woman that stays there. Okay? The first husband. Let's just look at it as it's a marriage. There's always going to be an element of the first, of ruach, a small impression of the spirit that is left in the first wife. Okay? The first relationship. Okay? This spirit remains with her at all times. However, what happens when her first husband dies? She remarries, and the spirit of her second husband enters within her. And this is one of the 400 questions. Okay? Let's go into it. Here's the actual text of the Saba. Say your thing, Saba. The Holy King is here. Come and see. This is the Saba speaking. How high are the awesome and mighty things the Holy King does? Who can speak about them? When the second husband comes and puts his spirit into this vessel, that means the wife. Okay? At the time they had the relations, the first time they had relations, the first spirit quarrels. This is the second husband. When the second husband comes and he puts his spirit into this vessel, the first spirit quarrels with this vessel that has entered, and they cannot settle down together. This is bizarre. Okay? For this reason, the woman does not settle down properly with her second husband. That's why maybe schizophrenia settles in, or bipolar. Okay? I don't say it's the answer to every bipolar or schizophrenic episode, but according to the Zohar, this is what's going on. Okay? In other words, she was married once, the husband died, but there's still an element of that ruach that remains within her. Then number two husband comes, and now there's two spiritual elements that are quarreling within her. The first husband, the first spirit, knocks around with her. She always remembers him and cries and grieves for him because his spirit is flopping around within her womb like a snake, and it quarrels with the other spirit of the second husband that has entered. So there's this tale of two souls fighting within her. Okay?
Does this mean pregnancy or just means...
No. This is just ongoing. This is just a battle, a spiritual battle. Right?
Well, when it writes within...
She's married to the second husband. She's making coffee. They just were married 3 months. Right?
It says within her womb. That's why I asked.
Yeah, it is, but it's obviously it enters her psyche because she's not settled. Okay? She's an unsettled spirit about her. Something ain't right. Okay? And she'll go to all the doctors and they can't figure it out. Maybe the psychs will be able to help. Here, just take this pill. You'll be all right.
You'll solve it.
If this spirit has entered, well, maybe we're going to train Harvey to do some, what do we call it, exorcism. In addition to everything else. If this spirit that has entered pushes out the first one, then the first one goes its way.
Whatever that means.
Okay, in other words, somehow the second husband's spirit within her wins, dominates, and succeeds in pushing out the soul of number one. And he's gone.
And where does that soul go?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
So far, I don't know. Okay?
No, does this mean...
He's not there.
It goes to the Reform Synagogue.
No, it says the
was good,
spirit
Harvey.
of the first husband who died.
Yes.
But how about if they get divorced? Does the spirit, the spirit still stay in
Yes.
her?
Yes. It's always there.
Oh, suppose she's married 4 or 5 times. Is there just a big battle?
You got a lot of... Well, it seems to be there's only going to be only
She's a
one.
pretty active girl.
What's the line? What's the line? There can be only one.
Okay.
There can be only one. Okay? In other words, first it starts off with 2. I don't even think we get to the level where there's 3, 4, and 5. Okay? So this is like, no, this is one match, and it's one against the other, and there can be only one. Yeah. Yes?
He mentioned divorce, but what about annulment?
There's always somebody making a...
According to everything that I've learned, relations makes it. Having relations, it's done. Annulment, death, nothing's going to remove this spirit that is within her from the first relations that she had. It's there. You're stuck. Now we're going to do an exorcisms. We're going to line up right now after. Just kidding. Yeah. What?
Right after Rosh Hashanah, we had like a group annulment and everything, right?
Don't do it. Don't do it. It ain't going to do it. No.
Formed an annulment.
This is just listen, look, let's read on. No, this is just a battle of 2 souls within the wife. Period.
Suppose she wasn't married. When
It's
she
still, no, it's got to be, it's a battle of two souls within the womb.
Okay, so
Married, not married. Once she had relations with X, that spirit of X remains with her.
okay.
You can't shake this thing up. Okay, can't shake this thing up. Okay, she marries the second husband, and obviously there's a battle going on within her.
But suppose it's not a second husband, it's just a second guy.
It's a ruach, it's a spirit.
Spirit. That's
Spirit is a spirit. Spirit is a spirit. Okay? There's two spirits fighting in her womb.
okay.
Okay? Now, if the second guy wins, the first guy goes out, right? Sometimes the first one pushes out the second and quarrels with it until he takes it out from the world. In other words, husband number 2 dies. Husband number 2 ends up dying. Don't ask me how this is done. And this is why we have learned that a man should not marry a woman who had two husbands die on her, because of the angel of death is strong within her.
Black widow.
The black widow,
Black widow.
it's a machlokas actually, is 3 a chazaka or 2 a chazaka. Rabbi Yehuda holds 2 as a chazaka. Okay, a chazaka means just status quo. Actually, he's got his source was Yehuda of Aaron Onan, Yehuda and Tamar. Onan, I got husband number 1 die, husband number 2 die.
dies.
I'm going to let her take number 3.
No way. No way.
It will never leave. That spirit will never leave.
Right. So number 2 died because obviously husband number 1 bumped the other guy. That's what he thinks. And anyways, it is actually a rule that if a husband, I'm sure that I don't know the Shulchan Aruch what it says about it, if it's the actual case, that if they'll actually make a ruling on that. I don't think there is an actual ruling in the Code of Jewish Law about it, but I think rabbis would say, if you come and ask her, should I marry this woman? She was married twice and both her husbands died. The rabbis would go,
There's something wrong with the third guy.
okay.
I want to marry her.
What?
What if she got divorced twice? Is that worse?
No. No. I don't, not here. Not in this case. Because, divorce is different. For some reason, you're still alive. You're alive.
Sloppy thirds. You know what?
I don't know what that
We
means,
need
but
to get her out of this room.
okay. People do not realize. Okay, so anyways, what happens is husband number 1 will win and husband number 2 dies. Okay, because the angel of death is strong within her. In other words, he's been open to the door several times. There's too much death around this woman, and they are advised, do not marry this woman.
He's got a favorite chair
Okay?
for living room.
People do not realize that it is the spirit of the first husband that has conquered the other spirit of the second husband. And that is why nobody should get mixed up with her. Okay? We ain't going nowhere today. Actually, Baruch Hashem, we covered some ground.
So,
Yeah.
So if husband 1 is still alive, okay, but they get divorced or whatever the case may be, and husband 2 comes,
Right.
husband 2 pushes out spirit husband number 1.
Good.
Does husband number 1 die?
No. No.
Did that make sense?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Why would he die?
'Cause you
I don't
said-
know.
You said the opposite.
I don't know. You know something? I'm not totally clear on the divorce thing. Okay?
It doesn't even have to be a divorce, like with Dina. Where she was, yeah, illegitimate relations.
Right.
And
Right.
She still has that spirituality of that person.
Yes. Yes. So what happened? So maybe Shimon's pushed the number 1 out.
That guy died.
Shame. No, I don't think he died. He did die. They killed
Well,
him.
yeah, he killed her.
They killed him. He's dead.
And like they had a daughter who ended up marrying Joseph.
Yeah, Asnat married Joseph. Who's that? Yeah. Right. Okay. Should we stop now? Okay. Let's. What?
The original sin in the Garden of Eden, doesn't it all go back to that? I mean,
Yes. Everything always goes back to that. Everything goes back.
the abyss, the primordial abyss.
It goes back to that too. But right now we're just trying to handle what's in front of us.
I mean, this
Okay.
is the result of all of this.
It is a result of the shattering of the vessels, the death of the kings, the sin of the Garden of Eden. Yes, we're trying to figure it out.
Hereditary in the genes, DNA.
Yeah, but still we have free choice and we have to rise and wake ourselves up and do what the right thing is. Okay? I think this is a good place to stop.
Yeah.
Okay? We're just getting warmed up.
This was good.
Where did we learn about